Hi everybody, welcome. Hi everybody, welcome back to another around Mijas. Anne is going to join me in just a moment. We had a last minute hitch with the link for the connection with this, but I think we're all sorted now, and I think she will be joining us very shortly. We have had a few little hiccups with the technology for the live streaming, but I'm really hoping that we got to the bottom of it now. We're trying a new system. And hopefully Anne will be joining us in just a moment. We're going to be talking tonight about some problems that people have been having around Mijas with squatters in their properties. It's a very real problem, obviously, if your house is occupied. And we will also be catching up with Anne on just any other Brexit things that have been happening. I know that certainly there are still a lot of questions with regards to driving licenses and the extension to the 31st of October. So hopefully Anne will be able to help us with that and to answer those questions. I'm just waiting for her to see if she can join in at the moment. Maybe while we're waiting, I think that there are a lot of issues for people in urbanizations. I spent a lot of time today talking to people around the urbanizations who are feeling that they are really not perhaps as protected as the people who live in the urban nucleuses. Okay, Anne is telling me that it says it's a wrong link. I'm going to just send a link to it again. I just love technology, folks. Especially when things are going out live. So let's see if Anne can manage to get a connection on this one. Yeah, a lot of people are concerned about the urbanizations at the moment. Mijas is not a typical town. We've got 150 square kilometers in Mijas, and people are very dispersed around these 150 kilometers. And I think sometimes that people who live in the urbanizations are a bit concerned that they don't have the same level of police presence. Perhaps just because of the dispersity within the community as well. They feel sometimes that their properties are not maybe quite as protected. It's certainly something that we are looking into, and I'm looking into as a councillor and with my colleagues. But I have to say that there is no simple solution to it. There has to be a commitment from the council to make this a priority. And until that happens, I'm afraid not a lot is going to change. I'm really hoping that Anne is going to manage to get this connection here. We are trying a different system tonight, and it was working. I did a test stream earlier today, and it was working absolutely fine. But for the live event, I think the link had changed, so I've sent that to her, and hopefully that's going to work. So one of the areas that that we dealt with last week with Daniela, we were talking about the kind of scams, the pickpocketing, the robberies, and the police have actually issued a warning now, saying that we have to be careful about this, not to leave things on the table, including your phones. People can come up with a clipboard or something and ask you for information, and if they put it down over your phone so that you look at what they've got, and then by the time they've gone, your phone is gone as well. So we're really grateful that the local police are aware of this, and that it is something that I think we need to make people aware of, and bags as well. So well done to Daniela for raising this issue, and thanks to the local Mijas police for also saying that this is a priority. This is something that they have to also that they want to deal with and they want to make us aware of. I'm not hearing anything from Anne, and I'm not seeing her yet. And in the meantime, I'm just talking and trying to keep you occupied. Let's just give it another moment, and we'll see if that link is going to work. Just asking Anne if she's having any joy. Anne!
Hello. Yes, I'm here now.
We got there.
I don't know what was going on. I've been sitting here since 6:45, thinking, well, hello, he must be here in a minute. I don't know.
You thought I was ignoring you, Anne?
I did. I thought, hello, is he not coming on? No, I didn't think you were ignoring me. I just thought something's different, because that was a different stream you sent me the second time, a different link.
I know. Well, I took a link from earlier, and then when I was looking at it just now, it gave me a different link. Anyway, we're here now, Anne, and thank you.
Now.
I've been waffling for the last 5 minutes.
Oh, have you? Okay, waffle on.
So we've got Anne McConnell on the line saying hello to us. So that's really nice. Hi, Anne.
Hi.
I've explained what we're going to talk about tonight, Anne, which is the whole issue of squatting. It's a real complicated issue, isn't it?
It is. It's a bit of a minefield, to be honest. It is. I mean, do you want me to start? Are we going to start?
Yeah, just go. Well, if you go for it.
It's following on from Daniela's chat last week, which was excellent advice. But I mean, there's so many scams and rip-offs being practiced at the moment, which is understandable because, there's been a lot of job losses given the pandemic. People are quite desperate. But I can think of nothing worse as a property owner than finding my property has been taken over by strangers and I can't do anything to access it. It's going to cost me money to actually get rid of them. And in the meantime, I can't change any locks. I can't stop paying any bills. It's awful. It really is. I mean, a few years ago, I think it was 2018, the law changed. So that you can get them out sooner than it used to take years. Now I think it's 6 months, maybe-ish. But it's still a complicated issue. And I mean, especially now that we've got the so-called swallows that are second homeowners here. And obviously with the travel restrictions of COVID, they've not been able to get over. So there's quite a few more vacant properties. Oh, hello, something's buzzing. And we really need to try and prevent access, basically.
Right. So what are always in every case, Anne, prevention is better than cure.
Absolutely, 100%.
So what are the candidates that we're being advised to?
Well, I've written, if you don't mind me reading it, I've written a list of, I think it's 8 measures that one can take, particularly for those that don't actually live here, that are possibly Mijas property owners, but they're not permanent residents. So if you don't mind me reading it, I shall begin.
No,
so number one,
go for it.
Number one is to install an alarm, and then obviously you would be alerted by the alarm company if there was an intruder, if there was access. And ensure that a resident who is a friend, a neighbour, or a solicitor has a power of attorney. Now that is absolute importance. And a copy of the deeds, because it is only the owner that can make the denuncia, the police report about the illegal intrusion into the property, or a power of attorney. So, I mean, that's essential. And it has to be done within 48 hours of them entering to prevent the need for a court order. So, it's got to be fairly prompt from when they get in. And a lot of them, I mean, they have gangs that operate, ringleaders, call them what you will. They're on the lookout all of the time for empty properties. They leave signs outside. I mean, I know recently there's been like stones placed in the doorway, and if they've not moved, then it's fairly obvious that the property is empty, and it alerts whoever is going to be accessing that the property is empty. It's also a sign for robbers, obviously, for thieves to come in to know that nobody's there. But anyway, so point number 3 would be to give a notarized authorization to enter, possibly a neighbour or a friend, and that they have a set of keys, because the police cannot enter without that. And it's difficult without a court order, and that takes time. And by then, they're already fairly well settled in your property, and you've got to then go through the courts to get them out. Give the community notification of any absent dates that the property is going to be unoccupied. It's important. I mean, if you have a concierge or a security guard on your urbanizational community, obviously they would be alerted to that fact and possibly a little bit more vigilant. And also keep the front garden and the terrace clear of dust and weeds, and perhaps that same kind neighbour would do it for you. Or you could pay a property management company. It's usually about 40 or 50 euros a month to do so. Ensure the letterbox as well is not overflowing with any post, because that's a sure sign that nobody is there collecting the post.
It's a real giveaway, isn't it?
It is, and that of course might be one of these banks of letterboxes, not necessarily your front door letterbox. If you live in a townhouse or something that has the banks of the letterboxes, you need to be certain that they're not overflowing. And as I say, a kind neighbour would probably do it. And not always the most pleasing to the eye, because we don't have them in the UK and we possibly don't understand the importance of them, is to install rejas, the window and door grills, certainly to lower floors, because it's not going to stop them getting in, but it's certainly going to make their job that much more difficult. And with their drilling and banging and hammering, somebody would have heard, and somebody would
they might decide to go somewhere else if it's going to be too much effort to get into.
This is what we're hoping. And then the last one that I think is a simple trick is to make the property appear to be occupied. So you can buy the timers that you plug in. You can buy them very cheaply from the Chinese bazaars, and plug them into a few table lamps around the house to go off and on at different times of the day. I think you can also get one that turns the television off and on. So again, that would make it look like somebody is actually in the property and that it's not totally empty. So they would be the 8 points I would recommend. But I mean, essential that we do something about preventing their access.
Right. So that's the prevention part. And I know that there are a lot of different alarm type systems now also. You know, there's a conventional alarm that will go off with movement detectors inside.
Yeah.
But I know a friend of mine who has been experimenting with a slightly different system. It's a very portable system, and providing the power is on in the house, you can basically see what's going on in the house from your
mobile
phone.
Exactly.
And these are very small units. I don't know, not much bigger than a golf ball. That you can place at strategic places around the house, and there's movement, and you can also operate, I think, the domotic things from the house if you have them wired in for lights to go on and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, you know, there are options.
There are options. I mean, some of the very big posh villas, let's say, have sort of like automatic curtain opening and closing. Again, you could put them on a timer would be helpful. Anything to make it look like the property is actually being lived in, or at least somebody is coming in.
And I know all of these things cost money, Anne, but so does getting people out of your property if they've taken over it.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I'm sure the neighbours would oblige with a lot of these things, because obviously, if you've got squatters in an adjoining property, the value of your property goes down instantly. People don't want to buy where there are squatters, obviously.
Sure.
So you know, everybody needs to help one another here, and it's all very well sort of this "I'm all right, Jack" type of thing, but no, let's forget that, and let's all be on the lookout for one another and helping neighbours. Certainly, when we know that they're not coming here.
Sure, yeah. And obviously in this last year, 18 months, there's been a lot less movement in a lot of properties. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's been quite difficult. So to recap on that, I know the law is very unfair, as Gordon Ross is saying. The law for squatters is outrageous. It is. It really is, because it seems very much in favour of the squatters and against the owners. It really does. I mean, I knew of a case a few years ago where some owners in Mijas have been alerted to the fact that squatters have got into their property. So he came over with a few heavies, his cousin, his brother, etc. The property wasn't, the people weren't in the property at the time. So they went in, they changed all of the locks. Next thing they know, they're being arrested because the squatters had denounced them for trespassing in their own property.
Oh my God, yeah.
And it happened.
But Anne, don't you remember 30, 35 years ago in the UK, this whole thing about squatters' rights was rife in those days, wasn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, it is. It is.
And it's one of the things that we're seeing now.
Yeah, I mean, and not only are you saying about the cost of getting them out and all of this, I mean, don't forget, they don't always look after your property in the way that you would expect somebody to.
No.
So you might have a lot of damage to repair. You might have items to replace. Obviously,
Sure.
where they've possibly broken in, you might have windows and doors to replace. You've got all of the locks to change in the first instance anyway. That would be absolutely important. But I mean, it is costly. So let's try and look out for one another and take on board some of the prevention measures to try and prevent it. But absolutely important that one has a power of attorney here, because you only have 48 hours to denounce the fact that they have entered.
Right.
Otherwise,
and can that power of attorney be given to a sort of community administrator, or does it have?
It can be given to anybody. Given to
anyone.
Anybody. Yeah.
Right.
Provided they've got that and the deeds of the property. Yeah, which you can get from property register.
Right at the beginning, Anne, you said something about the power and the water, that they can't be turned off. Do you want to just extend that?
You can't stop their utilities. So you would have to continue paying electricity, water, and anything else that you have that's a utility to the property. Even though you're not using it, they are. A lot of the time, the owners might get into trouble and they will stop paying. But then, you know, these squatters are quite clever, or the ringleaders or the gangs are, and they will link up to neighbouring properties. Sometimes they'll piggyback, let's say, on their electricity or water supply. And you don't realise until the person down the way who unfortunate has been piggybacked onto finds they've got an extortionately high bill.
Yeah, and also possibly connecting up to the community's water.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
So I mean, basically, everyone's paying the price.
Yeah, of course they are. No, I mean, that's everybody. I mean, if there's a leak or something, the community, in inverted commas, can actually disconnect the water. But it shouldn't be a permanent disconnection. It's only just to in inverted commas, a leak.
Right. Okay. So we've talked about the prevention being better than cure. If people find that their property has been occupied, then what comes next, Anne?
And the new requirements in law are, and I've got a list of these. It must be undertaken, the denuncia, as I've said, by the actual named owner or power of attorney. And the denuncia, the police report, must be made within 48 hours of the occupation to avoid the need for a court order. To the contrary, the squatters, ocupas as they're called in Spanish, they will try to prove that they were in occupation before 48 hours. So they maybe have different keys that they can show they've got sets of keys. They will even show they've got rental contracts, maybe falsely, obviously, but these things are given to them to prove that they were there from a month or so ago. And the owners then would have to go to court. So a solicitor will be involved. Again, it's going to be more costly, and the legal procedure can take 6 months or more to get them out. So it's not It's not good, is it?
No, but this seems to be something that this is not just a Costa del Sol problem. This is something a lot of people are facing in a lot of areas, isn't it?
Because they've all suffered the same losses with the pandemic, job losses, and people are quite desperate. I fully understand that, but there's ways of doing it. You don't occupy illegally someone else's property, do you? I mean,
no,
I wouldn't personally. Some people do, out of sheer desperation. Maybe some would. I don't know, but I don't know if it's happening in other countries. But it certainly is throughout all of Spain. Yes.
Yeah, and I do think, I mean, for a while, I think it was during the lockdown, this became an issue for a lot of people. And for a while, I was trying to keep on top of what was happening from a legislation point of view. And actually, after a few months, I just got really confused because it seemed to be saying, yeah, we can do this, and then there's a sort of express expulsion from your house, and then there's this, and I really kind of quite got lost, Anne, with where we were
Yeah,
with all of this.
it can be confusing, a bit like Brexit, I suppose, and the rules pertaining to that that changes by the day, by the week, it seems. So yes, these laws do change, and some people still remember the old laws and don't necessarily understand or take on board the new laws. So it can be confusing.
Right.
But I mean, don't fall foul of the law as an owner. Please ensure that you have a power of attorney given to somebody with a set of keys and your deeds, and don't undertake brute force or whatever you might think. Yes, you're going to feel aggrieved. I fully understand that, but you will come a cropper. I know there are some companies that are offering easily removal of these squatters. I don't know how legal they are, to be truthful, and I kind of think that you, as the owner, would be in trouble for having contracted them myself, because they would have to trespass into the property, wouldn't they? I don't know how they work.
Yeah.
I seriously don't, but I wouldn't have anything to do with it, to be truthful.
Yeah, I know. But when people are away, they're at a distance. I can see the attraction in going
Absolutely,
down
and the
that route.
desperation of it. Absolutely, yes, of course.
But yeah, as you say, it's likely to be the owner that's actually contracted this to happen that's going to end up in problem,
That is
um,
exactly.
rather than the squatters or the
Yeah,
company that's
absolutely.
actually doing this sort of forced
Yeah,
extraction.
yeah. I mean, the squatters, if they're being given access to a property, if they're alerted by a group, a gang that is working purely and finding properties for squatters, they're not silly. They know the law inside out, backwards, back to front, and every which way. They're really not silly. So they will do what they can to remain in that property. So you've got to be sort of one step ahead of them, basically. But absolutely
Right,
important. Within 48 hours, the denuncia has to be made, and the police can then tell them basically to leave without a court order.
right.
Otherwise, it's going to take time because it has to go through the courts.
But I think the message here really, Anne, is that we all need to sort of watch each other's backs on this one.
Absolutely, yes, we do.
That we need to tackle this as a community and
Yeah,
keep an eye on empty properties and just make sure that if something happens within the 48 hours, there can be action taken.
yes, indeed, exactly. Yeah, that's basically it. And obviously, install an
Yeah,
alarm and do whatever you can to prevent anybody getting in. Yeah.
right.
I mean, it's a bit
Great,
like
Anne.
car theft. If they want to steal your car, they're going to come hell or high water. It's going to happen, I think. But let's make it at least a
Yeah,
little bit more difficult for them.
yeah, and there are those out there that are constantly looking for opportunities. We know that. We had a
Absolutely.
friend who had someone in her house during the night. She lives on the first floor, and her dog woke her up, and she saw the shadow leaving
Gosh,
the balcony.
how
And
frightening.
why was that? Because it was a really hot night, and she left the windows open and to get some air in. And she lives down near the sea. And
Yeah,
thought, oh, a bit of breeze would be really nice. And I'm on the first floor and whatever. You
yeah.
know, there are always those out there looking for the
Absolutely,
opportunity,
absolutely. I
basically.
mean, and particularly those that might be renting their property, the renters, the holiday makers aren't going to know these things. I mean, I've seen people leave their windows and their door open while they've popped down to the community swimming pool, thinking, well, we're
Sure.
only 2 minutes walk away. Please don't do it. Do not do it.
No,
I mean,
no.
think you might be living in London or some big city, and don't do it. Is all I can say.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps there was a time, but not anymore.
No, no, absolutely. Oh, yeah. Well, yes, there certainly was a time. I can remember my dad never used to lock his car when it was parked, and I don't think anything ever got taken from it. But not anymore. You're quite right. So no.
Right.
Mm.
Okay, and that's been really interesting, and I think you've made it as clear as you possibly can. I don't
I
think
hope
there's really
so.
very much more that can be added to that.
No.
Can I just pick your brains on what any sort of ongoing Brexity stuff? I mean,
Brexit.
you're up to your ears in this, so
Yes, the Brexit. There's something every week, every day that we started off as an informative group, obviously dispelling rumours and just dealing in facts, because there's so many bobs in the bar here that know better than anybody and give wrong information. We've then sort of become experts on COVID by force. We've had to, and we've now morphed into a group, let's say, and we are, I believe, the only action group that actually take case studies to the authorities to sort out. One instance, as an example, was this morning. I accompanied a lady to the Malaga traffic to exchange her driving license. I had actually registered her before the 30th of December, so I knew there was no problem there. But her driving license in the meantime had expired and she had renewed it. And they wouldn't accept the renewed driving license because it's not an EU license. It's a British one. It's a UK license.
Right.
So I'm going to have to take that up because that was never said at the time when we were told you had to register your intent to exchange before the 30th of December and you had the 6 months, which they've now extended to the end of December, and we can drive here until the 31st of October. But it's ludicrous, Bill. Does that mean that anybody could be driving here for 10 months or more without a valid driving license? If your driving license is expired, surely it's not valid. I did ask this.
Well, that's right.
And they said, well, it was a shrug of the shoulders. I mean, that can't be right. I'm quite certain if the police stopped you and your driving license was out of date, you would have trouble.
Sure. I think, well, yeah, I mean, you're essentially driving without a license, aren't you? It's not even just driving with a British license, it's driving without a license.
Without a license. So I would imagine that your insurance is not valid if you had an accident, God forbid. I mean, it could be all sorts of problems. But that's got to be quite wrong, because in December, when we were told, and Spain very generously gave us this grace period, I don't deny they very kindly did, they never said, do not change your driving license if it expires in the meantime. Nobody ever told us that. And obviously, to be legal here and still driving, a lot of people whose driving licenses had expired in that time have to exchange their driving license, only now to find, I presume, that they can't exchange it.
Yeah. But in fairness to the Spanish authorities, Anne, I don't think anybody ever thought about these things.
Good Lord, no, they didn't. No.
They tried to make the provisions for what they thought was the simple swap of licenses. And, some people maybe couldn't change them before the end of the year because they weren't resident or whatever.
Yeah.
Some people just didn't bother changing them before the end of the year. And, well, that's their problem. But these are the other little problems that come along.
Brexit is the gift that keeps on giving. Every week there's something else that people don't realise. I mean, and people are saying, those that voted, okay, that's fine. They voted for Brexit. They said, well, I didn't vote for this. And that's when I've got news for you. You did. But these things were never talked about before, were they? The Leave campaign didn't discuss things like this. They didn't know how hard we were going to be hit. And I really think we living in the EU, we Brits living in the EU, are finding it harder than Brits living in the UK. I mean, we're having to jump through all sorts of hoops to remain legal here.
Absolutely. Listen, Anne, I've got a number of comments and questions that have come up from people that are listening in.
Okay.
Gordon says that the laws for squatters in Spain is outrageous and only encourages them. I don't think this is just a Spanish thing. I know that we had lots of problems with this in the UK at some point. Someone else is saying that if squatters, Anne is saying, if squatters have kids, you can take years to get them out.
That's how it used to be. Obviously that is true. Whilst they were of school age, that is true. But that's when I think the law changed in 2018.
Right.
I mean, I believe that's the case.
Right. Our very good friend John Sharples is saying it must be a terrible worry for people who have a holiday home in Spain. And I think, yes, it is, isn't
Absolutely.
it?
Absolutely. Yes.
Mark Jones is asking, with regard to utilities, what if the owner's bank is empty or embargoed? Will the utilities just be disconnected?
I would assume so. I would assume so. If bank account is empty or embargoed, yes. But by law, you're not allowed to stop paying those bills. So I presume you would have to find some other means of paying them because they would be in your name. Don't forget. They're in the name of not the name of the property.
Sure. Yeah, it has an individual named person who's responsible for it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Anne McConnell also, I think Anne is over in the sort of Coin na Loreen area, said that some of these companies that we were talking about negotiate on your behalf. She knows someone who paid €7,500 to get squatters out.
Well, if it worked and you've got that sort of money, maybe, but do be careful is all I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah. And she adds cash, of course.
Yeah, cash, of course. Yeah. They obviously went down and had a word with their kneecaps or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. I mean, we don't have here in Spain bailiffs like they do in the UK either, do we? They don't exist.
No, no.
And I mean, owning a property here is quite, or anything, or owning a car and exchanging, selling your car on. A lot of people fall foul of that because they don't understand the legalities of doing it here in Spain. And the same for
Sure.
applying for a residency. They don't understand that they become a fiscal resident. They just think that extends their holiday time here. It doesn't.
I know. I know.
You know?
Yeah, I have known people who've said, "Oh, yeah, I'll get my residency so as I can stay more than 180 days." And say, "Well, you
Absolutely.
need to start paying your tax here." Oh, I
Yeah.
don't want to do that.
Oh no, they won't do that. No, well, they don't believe it because they're not. That is not part of what they're being reminded. I mean, I know the Spanish consulate in the UK is issuing these. Let's say you apply for a visa. Let's say you get a non-lucrative visa, for example, and the poor Brit will get a stamp in their passport and think that is their permission to remain here in Spain. So they trot over here without realizing that visa is only valid for 3 months. They have to then actually apply for a TIE, and they're not told that. They
Sure.
think that is it. And,
Yeah.
and with so few days left, maybe, and not able to get an appointment, I don't know. They might have to go back to the UK and reapply for the visa again.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of horrible things happen. There really are.
And I think our time is about up. It's been
I'm
really
sure it is.
interesting talking to you about these things.
Thank
Sorry
you.
about the slow start. People had to
That's
listen
all
to me
right.
waffling
That's
for
all
5
right.
minutes, but
Did you see?
I think overall the streaming has gone better this way, so
Yeah.
we'll get better at it. And thank you so much. Have
Thank
a
you,
very
Bill.
good weekend when it comes.
Thank you.
Hope you get some time off.
That would be nice. I'm coming down to La Cala tonight because my daughter's singing down there. So I'm coming down with
Oh,
some friends
nice,
to a
lovely.
restaurant, which will be lovely.
Yeah. Looking forward to coming over to listen to next week.
Thank you. Yes, the 22nd.
22nd, yeah.
Yeah,
That's going to be
8:30.
nice.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for listening in. Thank you for your comments, folks. If you want to make sure you get notifications of this, please click subscribe on the YouTube channel. It doesn't cost any money, unfortunately. It's
And if they,
something that's still for free.
and if they want this information, these 8 points or something, I mean, they can either contact you, Bill, and I can let you have them, or they
Sure.
can contact me with pleasure because it really
if
is
you
important.
if you can send them to me by WhatsApp, and I
can.
can post them underneath the video. Perfect.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
That would be good. Yeah.
And next week, 7 o'clock, we have Mr. Alan Boardman joining us, talking about the Simply Surviving group. Thank you ever so much, folks, for listening in. We look forward to joining you again next week. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, Anne.